So please feel free to approach one of us if you're interested in sponsoring the Godhead. It's $101 sponsorship. And then of course we have the flower sponsorships. So for our Sunday feast special flowers is $151. And during the week we look for 3 sponsorships of $125 each. So if you're interested in serving the Lord that way, that's also available. Yeah. Okay, the big day coming up. Today is Sunday, and we had the Black Friday last Friday, and tomorrow is Cyber Monday. These are all very auspicious days on Vaishnav calendar, apparently. And then we have Tuesday, which is Giving Tuesday. This is a thing, actually. And so for the last couple of years, on Giving Tuesday, where people all over the world will give to their favorite charities and favorite causes, ISKCON of New Jersey, this temple, in just the last 2 Giving Tuesdays, we raised close to $90,000 just from all the devotees such as yourself. Now, why it's so popular is that Facebook offers $8 million worth of matching to all the charities in this country. So if you are able to donate exactly at 8 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time on the Facebook donation website, which is on our ISKCON of New Jersey Facebook website, you can actually double your donation up to $20,000. So, but in order to do that, you have to set it up in advance. So it's pretty easy. You just sign up for a Facebook account if you don't have one, and then just make sure your PayPal or credit card is connected to it. And then exactly 8 o'clock, using the atomic time clock, you just say donate, and it sends your donation. Last year, within 7 seconds, 8 million quota was reached. 7 seconds. All right. Now, I remember when I made the donation last year, I got an email confirmation later that your donation did get doubled. So like that, number of devotees get their donation doubled if you do it in those 7 seconds, and it's really nice. So if you're interested, please go to our website, iskonofnewjersey.org, or go to our Facebook page. We have very detailed instructions on how you can make it under that 7 seconds. Very successful. It's very easy instructions. And if you want to make a donation, if it's big or small, doesn't matter. If you're going to make a donation bigger than $2,500, then there's extra step of instructions which tells you how you can make sure it doesn't give you too many extra pop-ups, so you can set up your ID confirmation in advance. You can do all that tonight or tomorrow, but do make sure you get it all done, okay? And then when you donate, if it's more than $500 and you hit donate, then it gives you a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to donate? And that's when that timer, and when you say, yes, I want to donate, the second pop-up is when you want to hit 8 o'clock. So depending on how much you're giving, you see, if it's under 500, then you want to hit that first donate button at 8 o'clock exactly. If it's more than $500, then you hit that first donate button at 7:59, and then when that pop-up says, are you sure, right, then you watch your clock, the countdown, and don't watch the regular clock that's on the wall. You want to use the clock, the atomic clock, which is time.gov. Okay, so open another web window, or maybe look on your phone or something and see time.gov and show the exact time. And you do the countdown. The moment it hits 8:01, you hit, and you'll get through. It's an amazing way. We are hoping that we'll get tens and tens of thousands of dollars this Tuesday, especially now that we're having so much success in our new temple. Our new temple, as we've reached huge milestones. The concrete has been poured on both levels, and the bricks are already on site, ready to be put in. The roofing materials on site to be put on top of the roof. You have some of the rooftop units. It's outstanding. So go to our website, iskonofnewjersey.org, and you'll see those updates. Lots of details available on the participating temple updates. The target opening, we're still shooting for September, which is a very aggressive target. Okay, September of 2022, which is only a few months away. And it's not Hashmi, very auspicious weekend. It's a long weekend. So, but if we pitch in and work really hard, we can certainly meet this target. All right. So part of this is the prayer that we offer. So please repeat after me. Our dear Lord Krishna, kindly give us your causeless mercy. And allow us to become instruments in service of Srila Prabhupada. Let us follow in his footsteps to grow the movement and build this new temple in your service. Srila Prabhupada ki. Okay, so thank you very much for your prayers. Tonight it gives us great pleasure to have our speaker, our very own, His Grace Yasoda-dulal Prabhu. Hari Bol. Yasoda-dulal Prabhu is a member of our congregation. He is also one of the leaders of our movement. He is serving as a member of the directors board in our Manhattan temple, the Bhakti Center, a very beautiful temple. If you haven't had a chance, go check it out. 25 First Avenue, downtown Manhattan, outstanding, exquisite temple. Not far from here, only like 28 miles from Parsippany area. So Yasoda-dulal Prabhu is also very well known all over the world. He was instrumental in the last year, when we had lockdowns and things like that. ISKCON of Towako, New Jersey, became a global icon in weekly and daily speakers and sangha on Zoom. And we were pioneers in pretty much the whole ISKCON world, and devotees were joining from Australia and UK and to just come. And Yasoda-dulal was very instrumental because he would get all the best speakers, he would help us coordinate that, and he was a lot of the inspiration and guidance behind that, behind the scenes. So he's helped us succeed here in Towako in many, many ways. Of course, on the professional front, he has a long string of titles, a mile long. He's a very highly placed executive officer in large organizations, large companies. He's done that for many years. He has an MBA from Ivy League, Columbia, and so very reputable educational background, a wonderful devotee. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important credential that Prabhu has is he's my personal, very good friend. And so it gives me great honor. And of course, Yasoda-dulal Prabhu, he lives right here in New Jersey with his wonderful wife, Shri Radhika Mata. She's also here, and they serve an exemplary grihastha couple, always serving devotees and preachers in our movement, always get to be served by them, and they get to serve them. So it's really just a wonderful example they're setting in our community. So tonight he'll be speaking on Bhagavad Gita, on one of my favorite topics. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Yasoda-dulal Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Some people don't know this card. The white plug on the left side.
White plug, the top white plug.
On the left side.
Yeah. Wrong white plug.
It's too glaring in my eyes.
Heat.
Thank you.
See how dark it becomes.
The DP was shedding wonderful light. Hare Krishna. So, before I begin, if I might offer a small clarification, I might have a dry cough and cough a couple of times during the class. I promise you it's not COVID. I've had this for years and years before COVID. It happens every year in winter when the dry air starts, the heat starts, and my throat just reacts to it. And unless I can sit with a humidifier right under my nose, I always have that. So, and I'm triple vaccinated. I took my booster a month ago. So it's not COVID, but I feel great. So if I cough, please don't feel uncomfortable. It's because of the dry air. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, I do. But yeah, and you can have that front page. It's on Arjuna? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that will do.
You want to try it out? You want to cut it?
What do you see up there? Just the first side?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari chant together Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mangalacharan prayers. Feel free to chant along if you know them. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnu Sahakanameva Mutave Swayam Rupa Kadami Yamdati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Krishna Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Samsadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Santa Shri Radha Chanta Namaste Taptakancha Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwapanusute Devi Pranamani Devi Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasamudhyasya Patitanapavekyo Vaishnavekyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So I wanted to title the talk of today's talk, The Yoga of Hope. And the reason is that this process that Lord Chaitanya came to give us 500 plus years ago and that Srila Prabhupada came to the West in 1965 to give us is actually a process of hope. And I feel, looking around at all the exalted souls that are here, among the women, the men, and the children, some exalted souls here among the children also. I feel like even someone like myself can hope to speak about Sri Krishna by all of your blessings, especially the blessings of my seniors, Nilamani Prabhu, Mahesh Pandit Prabhu, Shamkun Prabhu, Madan Gopal Prabhu, Manasi Ganga Devi, and so many others. If I don't name you, doesn't mean that I don't consider you my worshipable senior. I do, but then I'll take 45 minutes to chant all your names. So, without further ado, let's begin. And I love this particular darshan. This darshan is from the last festival we had. You remember? Last Kartik Purnima. I was so smitten. It's like, in The Godfather, the movie, there's that line that, Michael sees that girl and he's hit by lightning, by a bolt of lightning, because he falls in love. I saw this picture on, Antaryami Prabhu puts that Tobacco congregation pictures, and it was like a bolt of lightning that hit my heart. I was like, oh my God, these deities, they're always so stunning, but today they're like especially stunning. So I thought I'll put that picture up. Nice picture, huh?
Very nice.
All right, so Krishna gives assurance to Arjuna. So by now, the Bhagavad Gita is about 60% of the way through. And so Krishna has covered a lot of ground in the first 11 chapters, and he's now in the 12th chapter. And today's verse specifically is going to be 12th chapter, 6th and 7th verses. We can chant together. Yetu sarvani karvani vai sanyasya matpara ananyena yogena mam dhyayanta upasate tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. What is Krishna giving assurance to Arjuna about? He's saying, but those who worship me, Krishna is saying to Arjuna, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha. For them, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So we're going to unpeel or unpack this message because there's a lot that is in this verse. Yeah. So we're going to unpeel it, unpack it over the next probably 25 minutes or so, and hopefully I can leave some time for questions and answers. Folks in the back, can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, fantastic.
Talk a little bit louder.
Sorry?
Bring the mic a little bit closer.
Okay. I feel like I'm about to swallow it like a lollipop or something. Yeah. All right. So before we dive into this verse, I wanted to actually go ahead a little bit and talk about, so Krishna has given us a really high standard for, being the swift deliverer from this world of birth and death. So I want to look ahead and say, well, some of us might have looked at the previous verse and said, am I undeviating in my meditation on Krishna? Do I do all my activities simply for the pleasure of Krishna? Am I constantly, engaging my intelligence in Krishna? And at least in my case, the answer is no. And then I'm looking at this verse and I'm feeling a little daunted. Like, maybe then this is not for me? And Krishna is saying, no, wait. Even for people like you, he's telling Yasoda-dulal Das, I have some options. And so he gives a progressive ladder that actually begins from this highest point and it goes down. If you can't do this, then do this. Then if you can't do that, then do that. And we're going to look at it. So in text 8, the verse right after this, Krishna says, just fix your mind upon me and engage your intelligence in me. So this is the highest step on the ladder. Yeah? If not possible, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. So this process is what Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami call sadhana bhakti. Yeah, and that's the process that we are engaged in ourselves in varying degrees. It's basically following a set of regulations and rules, pretty simple in their original intent. We sometimes tend to complicate them with our complicated minds, but the intent is very simple: to try and curb the mind, which is the chief sense, and to start becoming focused on Krishna. And that's sadhana bhakti. Yeah, so we are given a set of different simple regulations, simple rules to follow, certain do's, certain don'ts. So we chant a certain number of rounds daily. Some of us might chant 1 or 2 rounds daily. Some of us might chant 4, 8. Those who have taken Diksha, they're supposed to chant 16 rounds a day minimum, right? That's one. Then they're supposed to follow the 4 regulated principles of freedom, right? And so at this point, I want to ask the audience a strange question. Think of your car and the brakes in your car. What is the purpose of the brakes in your car? There's no wrong answers. Shoot out some answers. Yeah.
To slow your car down.
Good, that's one. It's very true. That's one option. What else?
To avoid accidents.
To avoid accidents, yes. What else?
To control the moving vehicle.
Control the moving vehicle, yes. Any others?
To stop at the destination.
To stop at the destination. One last, and then I'll tell you something that you might not have thought of. Anyone? Why do we have brakes in the car?
Control the speed.
Control the speed. Okay, I'll tell you something that will completely change the way you look at rules and regulations of bhakti and the way why we have brakes in the car. It is so that we can go fast. Think of it. If we didn't have brakes, say your car has no brakes on the way down, right? You will drive at 1 mile an hour because you want to avoid hitting anyone, yeah? Now you have to, you're in Tobacco, and unless you want to stay here and serve the DVs, 24/7, you presumably want to go home. But if a car has no brakes, you'll be like, man, I need to, or the brakes are bad, I need to go really slow, right? When you have good brakes, it enables you to go faster. And so the purpose of the 4 regulated principles of freedom, the 4 principles, the regulations that we follow, that we don't eat meat or animal products like eggs and fish and so on. We don't have illicit sex. We don't take intoxicants, and we don't gamble. It's not to suck the pleasure out of our life. It is to actually enhance the happiness that we get from going beyond pleasures of the senses and going into Bhakti Yoga, which actually provides true happiness. Bhakti Yoga is an experiential science, meaning it can only be understood by experiencing it. Just like swimming, for example. You can read about how beautiful the water in Hawaii is. It's 85 degrees all year, gorgeous blue ocean. But if you don't actually take a dip and swim, will you understand what swimming is? It has to be experienced. So Bhakti Yoga, the science of loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord, can only be understood by experiencing it. But just like, many of you, I'm sure, are wonderful cooks. I know some of you are wonderful cooks. Just like you have a recipe, but you look at this recipe and you say, you know what, I'm going to make palak paneer today, but I really don't like steps 3, 5, and 6 in this recipe, so I'm just going to cut them out, right? And I'm going to make palak paneer. You might have some form of palak paneer at the end, and it'll probably taste like a disaster. It won't taste the same. So similarly, the process of Bhakti Yoga, the 4 regulated principles of freedom. And why do I keep saying freedom? Because they actually free us from our enslavement to our senses. The chief of those senses is our mind. Right now, as you're sitting here listening to me speak, I'm sure some of you are thinking, I wonder when he's going to end so that we can go to Prasad. Hmm? Man, this guy is really boring. Why? Just move on, will ya? Right? And some of you are probably paying attention and you're actually processing and you're looking at it in a different way, just like the brakes analogy, right? It's a different way of looking at some of the regulations that we might chafe at. You know, I used to, when I was, for years, you know, I have a very fiery constitution, so Ekadashi was always very hard for me. And so I always used to chafe, like, why do I have to do Ekadashi? Like, do I have to starve to prove my love for Krishna? Like, can I not eat like gulab jamuns and prove my love to Krishna? Like, why do I have to, like, not eat? Until I realized that, and then I read some scientific literature on that from our Indra Prabhu, who, distilled it. And he actually has a great class in Ekadashi. And then I realized, oh, the body has a natural cycle. Every 14 days, it needs to take a break. It's kind of like sending your body in for servicing. And then the purpose beyond that, to rejuvenate and recuperate, beyond that, the idea is you minimize your bodily needs on that one day, and then you devote more time for chanting and hearing about Krishna. And just like, players, when they go into a game, they never go in without practice first. That's what we're doing. We are practicing Abhyas Yoga. Krishna says, or Prabhupada says in one of the purports, Abhyas Yoga is basically kind of like play yoga, right? Not quite, but it's practice yoga, right? So we're practicing what it is like to be fully engaged in devotional service. And that's what these things are. So Krishna is saying, okay, highest standard, be completely absorbed in me. Fix your intelligence, fix your mind, engage your intelligence in me. You can't do that, at least follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, Sadhana Bhakti. And in this way, develop a desire to attain me. Dhurijan Prabhu, who's a very learned, exalted disciple of Srila Prabhupada, a great author, he's written a book on Bhagavad Gita, and he says in relation to this particularly, he says that Krishna, all that Krishna is asking us to do is engage our desire in wanting to serve Krishna. So we should have a desire to serve Krishna, and we should do something practical to serve Krishna. So it's not enough to simply desire. So for example, those of you who are mothers, if for example you say, I love my son or I love my daughter, yeah, but you don't do anything. Like they're starving, they're crying, they're injured, you don't do anything, because I love them, but I refuse to do anything. Is that love real? It's like lip love, right? There's no real substance to it. So similarly, we must have a desire not just to want to fix our mind on Krishna, but do something practical. Whether it's chanting, whether it's engaging in some service, whether it's contributing some of our earnings for building a new temple. Oh wait, am I going ahead of myself? I think I'm going ahead of myself. Because the next verse, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport to this verse, Krishna says, just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you'll come to the perfect stage. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes the purport to chapter 11, verse 55, where it's described in detail what it means to work for Krishna. And then Srila Prabhupada gives specific examples here, some more examples. And one of the examples he says is, try to remember, at least if you are not able to do even sadhana bhakti, at least work for Krishna. Give a portion of your earnings for propagating Krishna consciousness, for sharing this science with others, for building a temple, right? And I thought it was very interesting as I was reading for this. I was like, we are building a beautiful new temple. It's going to be, forgive me, Baltimore, but it's going to be the most beautiful temple on the Northeast, in the Northeast of America. Baltimore is beautiful too. And so if we help build it, that's what we're doing. We're following Krishna's instruction. But Krishna's not done yet. He says, if even working for me is not possible, try to act giving up the results of your work. So this may seem a little puzzling. You might think the previous verse and this verse are the same. No, but the previous verse is talking about working directly for Krishna, having some specific service that you do, whether it's by your body, by your mind, whether you're doing some online seva, you're bringing people to the temple, or you're sharing about Krishna with folks, or you're engaging part of your earnings to to help, in the propagation of Krishna consciousness, building a temple. But this is saying, if you can't even do that, you don't have any affinity for any of that, then at least do some charity work. Do something that makes you internally start to realize that the results of the work that I do don't belong to me. And so Krishna is saying even that is okay, because indirectly that will connect you to me. But this is not direct devotional service. We're now getting way down on the ladder of different types of spirituality. And so then, at the end, he says, cultivate knowledge of the self. Basically, what does that mean? It's to understand that I am not this body. I am an eternal soul. I'm spirit. I'm not physical matter. And then better than that is meditation, right? And then Krishna says, better than that is the renunciation of the fruits of action. And that will lead to peace of mind, right? So now, we look at this and we say, okay, Krishna started all the way at the top saying, completely engage your mind in me, your intelligence in me. And then he's coming all the way down here and saying, well, at least try to realize that you are not the body, right? So I want to go back to the verse that we started off again. But those who worship me, that's point number one, giving up all their activities unto me, working for Krishna, being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating on me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Pritha. For them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Just yesterday, I received news that someone on my work team has developed COVID. And so, we've seen enough cases now where you start to get worried when you hear stuff like that. She lives 200 miles away from here, so, but my thought immediately was like, I hope she'll be personally fine, right? And why I say that? Because I think the pandemic has brought home to us that this world is really dukhalayam or shashvatam, right? That it's really a place of misery and it's temporary, right? Nothing we have is permanent, right? The only thing permanent we carry with us is any devotional acts that we have done. That we carry into our next life. And Krishna promises, if you've only finished your journey 15%, next life you'll start at 16%, right? But everything else, you might have a big bank balance, nice house, beautiful children, wife, husband, whatever, you're not going to carry those. Once your body's terminated, all those relationships are terminated, right? So it's really important to understand, how do I get out of this ocean of birth and death, right? And that's what Krishna is telling us in this verse. And that's why I called this class today the Yoga of Hope. So one of the first things Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, devotees are very fortunate to be delivered very soon from material existence by the Lord. And you'll see very soon is a theme that repeats itself during this purport. So we'll come back to it. In pure devotional service, one comes to the realization that God is great and that the individual soul is subordinate to Him. We've all spent millions, billions, maybe trillions of lifetimes wandering through different species under the misidentification that I am an amoeba, I am a jackal, I am a hippopotamus, I might look like one, but no, I'm in a human body. I'm an American, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, whatever, right? We've gone through these bodily identifications birth after birth. But it's not till we come to the stage of inquiring, why am I don't want to get old, I don't want to die, I don't want to get diseased, I don't want to have any pain, but yet I have to suffer that in this world, right? Yesterday I was young, today I feel middle-aged, tomorrow I will be old, if I live that long. And then I'll be dead, right? So then, when you think of that, when you start inquiring, why am I here and how do I get out of here, right? That's when you start realizing, and then you meet devotees of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kaun Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach, right? That after wandering through millions and millions of lifetimes a fortunate soul comes into contact with devotees of the Lord, and by their mercy he gets a connection to the Supreme Lord and to the process of Bhakti Yoga. And then we start realizing that God is great. His duty, the spirit soul's duty, is to render service to the Lord. And if he does not, he will render service to Maya. At Radhashtami Day, I talked about the three energies of Krishna. And the three energies are the internal energy, which is his own internal potency, right? Which is further divided into three potencies. Then his external energy, which is the material energy. And then the marginal energy, which is tathastha, right? The energy that's on the shore. So as spirit souls, us, all of us living entities, we are the marginal energy. And why are we marginal? Because we have a choice whether we want to be controlled by the spiritual energy of Krishna, the internal energy, or we want to be controlled by the external energy of Krishna. We don't have a third choice, meaning I don't want to be under any control, right? I want to be just free. And Krishna actually says the only way to be free is to come under the control of my spiritual energy. Because then you're free from all the external energies, impediments and obstacles of birth, old age, disease, death, inconveniences, miserable weather, storms, so on and so forth. Right? So our duty is to render service to the Lord, or we can render service to Maya Devi, as we've been doing for billions of lifetimes. Yeah? As stated before, the Supreme Lord can only be appreciated by devotional service. Where does Krishna say that? 11th chapter, 54th and 55th verses. Krishna says to Arjuna, Arjuna has seen this gigantic universal form and is terrified. And he prays like, Krishna, please show your beautiful self again. I can't bear this horrendously ghastly form. Right? And Krishna says, I can only be appreciated as I am standing. You can only see me as I am standing before you through devotional service. Right? So Krishna said that before. The devotee does not desire any achievement other than pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Samsiddhi Haritoshnam. Right? His mission, life's mission, is to please Krishna. The process is very simple. One can devote himself in his occupation and engage at the same time in chanting Hare Krishna. Mahaprabhu, there's that famous example. He was on his tour of South India and he went to different towns and villages as he walked through all of India. And at one place, Kurma Kshetra, he came to the house of the Kurma Brahman. And the Kurma Brahman, now Lord Chaitanya, imagine if the Lord walked into your house. If you have a deity of the Lord at home, then he has walked into your house. But say you don't have a deity and the Lord knocks on your door and says, hello, Hare Krishna, I'm Lord Chaitanya. Right? You'd be like, wow. Right? And then not just says that, I mean, any imposter can say that. But you actually see, you experience that this is the Lord. So that's what happened to the Kurma Brahman and his family. He served this lucky Brahman and his family. He served Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu stayed there overnight and the family fed him. They washed his feet, drank the water, sprinkled the water on their heads, and spent time with him. They did kirtan with him, and Mahaprabhu bestowed his fullest mercy on this Kurma Brahman. So the next day, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set out to go to his next destination, the Kurma Brahman started to follow him. And he said, I don't want to be doing what I was doing all these years, being with my family, taking care of family life, working for a living. I just want to be with you. And what did Mahaprabhu say?
Sthane sthita.
Yeah.
Stay in your position.
Yeah, stay where you are, just chant Hare Krishna and share this knowledge with everyone. Right? That's all that Mahaprabhu asked. Add Krishna to your life and share it as broadly and as widely as you can. Yeah? The Supreme Lord herein promises that without delay, there is that time factor again. Without delay, he will deliver a pure devotee thus engaged from the ocean of material existence. Those who are advanced in yoga practice can willfully transfer the soul to whatever planet they like by the yoga process, and others take the opportunity in various ways. But as far as the devotee is concerned, it is clearly stated that the Lord himself takes him. And we're going to see some examples of that. The devotee does not need to wait to become very experienced in order to transfer himself to the spiritual sky. Why? Because the responsibility is taken by Krishna himself. Krishna clearly states here that he himself becomes the deliverer. A child is completely cared for by his parents, and thus his position is secure. The Supreme Lord, by his great mercy, comes at once, there is that time reference again, comes at once, riding on his bird carrier Garuda, and at once delivers the devotee from material existence. So that's our hope. Although a man who has fallen in the ocean may struggle very hard and may be very expert in swimming, he cannot save himself. But if someone comes and picks him up from the water, then he is easily rescued. Similarly, the Lord picks up the devotee from his material existence. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. The devotee can approach the supreme destination easily and happily. But this destination cannot be approached by any other process of religion. Easily and happily is also mentioned at other places in the Gita, 8th chapter, 14th verse, easily, right? And happily is mentioned in 9.2. Right? So this process is joyous, is performed joyfully. Yeah. This destination, which is the Lord's personal abode, cannot be approached by any other process of religion. And the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is stated in the 18th chapter. We can chant together. Sarva dharma one should give up all other processes of self-realization and simply execute devotional service in Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada ends that purport, it's a long purport, by saying, let everyone take shelter of the supreme omnipotent Godhead Krishna. That is the highest perfection of life. So I want to tell a story now. Yeah? After all this philosophy, ready for a story? Yeah? All right. What do you see here? Right? It's a monkey way. So this is 1967, San Francisco, early years. Srila Prabhupada goes on a morning walk, and Leelavati Devi, she's one of his earliest disciples, she's in the car with Prabhupada and some of his assistants, and Prabhupada gets out and starts to walk. But Leelavati has a baby, Subhadra, little baby, tied to her in a baby carrier, or whatever you call it, right? In a baby carrier. And she struggles to get out of the car. And so Prabhupada is waiting there, tapping his cane, and he looks back and says, oh, burden of affection, huh? And Leelavati says, yes, Srila Prabhupada. Yes, Swamiji, because at that time they were not calling him Prabhupada yet. Yes, Swamiji. And then Prabhupada started to walk ahead. And it was his practice, so he would tap his cane, and then he said, there are two ways that a child can be safe. One is the monkey way, and the other is the cat way. Yeah? So this is the monkey way. Can you see the poor little baby hanging, by the chest of the mother, right? And the monkey is leaping from tree to tree. And it is a fact that these monkey babies frequently fall down because sometimes they are jumping from like a tree which is 300 feet away. And they're jumping all the way across, and the baby, you've seen babies that are, the mothers and fathers, you've all had babies. The babies are so helpless. They cannot really fend for themselves. But this poor thing, this might be like a 2-day-old baby, has to desperately hold on to the mother. Otherwise, it'll fall down. And it does fall down. More than half the time, the baby falls down and is promptly eaten by a jaguar or a lion, or baboons, other monkeys, right, which are carnivores. It's a horrific ending. And so what is the significance here? So I'm showing here in the box, spiritual practitioners other than devotees of the Lord, they are left to their own devices. Down there is the jungle of the material universe, right? The ocean of birth and death. And they're trying to, level themselves up. In America, it's famous, right? Like, I'm a self-made man, to be proud about it and boast. I picked myself up with my, shoestrap myself, right? Yeah. And, but the problem with that is that, if you come to spiritual practice, that is a very dangerous path, because we are weak. We are not spiritually strong. And so, Prabhupada, on that morning walk, he continued asking Lilavati, like, what is the monkey way and the cat way? And she was at first confused. They both sound really, really difficult. And then it clicked on her, what is better? But before we get to that, we're going to take a slight detour and look at Bhagavad Gita 12.05, where Krishna says, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied, meaning those who are in a body. So, some commentators of the impersonal school look at this and say, well, all you have to do is to go beyond the body, and then, you're okay, right? Then the advancement is not troublesome. But think about it. Krishna gave the Bhagavad Gita, the maximum wisdom of the world, in 700 verses. You don't think Krishna would have specifically said, yeah, just go beyond the body, Arjuna, you'll be fine. Nowhere does Krishna say that. Krishna again and again says that attachment to my impersonal feature eventually will bring you to me. But it could be billions, trillions, who knows, countless trillions of lifetimes. Because it's not an easy process. It's a bootstrapping process. You have to depend on yourself, right? And here's the cat way. It still looks scary, doesn't it? Yeah? But what is happening? The lioness has a very unique, or any cat, has a very unique feature. The same jaws that spell death for other living entities, for the little one of the lioness, the cub, these same jaws, they're firm, but they don't hurt at all. And the cub is just carried from one place to another out of danger, and the lioness protects them. So Prabhupada explained this, and then it dawned on Lilavati that yes, the cat way is the way to go. That's the easy way, because Prabhupada concluded that particular pastime by saying that a devotee of the Lord, he simply throws his hand up, and he paused dramatically, and he threw his hands up, and he says, Krishna, I'm in desperate danger. Can you save me? And Krishna swoops down and he saves us. So yes, we want to be in the cat way, not in the monkey way. I wanted to show this little graphic. I show this at work also. Whenever we are doing a big project, so like building the new temple, for example, right? Or anything that we do, preparing for a festival, there's so many things to do. If you think about, like, my God, 5,000 people will come for Janmashtami, how am I going to cook? And, Shanti Parayan and Balaram and Antaryami Prabhus, they're all like, racking their brains, like, how are we going to cook? And they're doing everything. So the goal is clear. This is what we want to do, that big thing. But if you don't break down that goal into smaller steps, it's overwhelming and it's impossible to do anything about it, right? So the smaller steps, look at the guy on the right. He's still at the bottom. He's still trying to figure out, how do I take that first giant step? The one on the left, he's already at the top of the ladder, because he just said, hey, let me just use a ladder with small steps, and I'll go right up. Jayadvaita Swami, our beloved, one of our beloved teachers, Jayadvaita Swami, in the final days of Srila Prabhupada's manifest pastimes on this planet, he said to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, it's marvelous how many books you wrote. And I'm actually going to show a graphic later it's mind-boggling how many books Prabhupada wrote. And he said, how do you do it? You were running an international society, you traveled around the world several times in your old age. Like, how many times was it, Madan Gopal Prabhu? Was it 12 times in 11 years? 14 times? 14 times, right?
12 years, yeah.
Yeah, in 12 years. 14 times in 12 years. And he would go from place to place to place to place. And like a young 20-year-old, he'd be like charging around. He would be giving initiations to disciples. He had thousands of disciples. He would write thousands of letters he wrote in 12 years. He managed all the affairs of the society. He gave lectures. He met important people. And he wrote these books. And His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami was wondering, how did he do that? This story is narrated in Vishakha Devi's beautiful book. If you get any book by Vishakha Devi, it's a pleasure to read. She's a wonderful writer, proper disciple. The book is called 5 Years, 11 Months. It's her story of her personal, she spent 5 years and 11 months, she and her husband Yadubar, photographing and videographing Srila Prabhupada in close quarters. Even sannyasis would not be allowed to be with Prabhupada, and they were allowed to be there. So her association with Prabhupada is very deep and very intimate. So this story is in her book. And so Jayadvaita Swami said, Srila Prabhupada, how do you write all these books with so much going on? And you know what Prabhupada said? He was very weak and emaciated. He said, a little water wears away a stone. So, you know, in Marathi there is a phrase, I don't know if there's any Marathi person here, thembe thembe pani sate, or, you know, like a dripping of water, right? You can fill a huge bathtub with a dripping of water, or you can wear away a stone with dripping water. That's what Prabhupada was saying. Every day he said I would write a certain amount and I would accomplish it. Why am I showing this graphic here? Because our process of bhakti can seem very overwhelming, and the goal can seem impossibly far away. We know our weaknesses internally. We may pretend, you know, I might pretend to be a pakka devotee. I know what my weaknesses are, right? And so when I think of it, and I look at like Krishna, how do I ever come back to Goloka with all the weaknesses I have? I then remember this, the importance of smaller steps. The daily charge, let me ask you, other than not having food and water and air, isn't your panic station not having juice in your cell phone? Seriously, come on. Like, I panic when my phone is at like 10% and I don't have a charger around me. Right? I'm like, oh my God, like, where's the charger? I'm like, you know, I can't focus, I'm distracted, right? The daily charge. And look at that clock in the background, right? That clock symbolizes that time is ticking away, right? And so do we wait 1 month before we charge a phone? Yeah? No? Yeah, we don't. We charge it daily, sometimes 5 times a day, right? Depending on how often we use it. I have my phone charged all the time because I'm like, man, I can't allow it to be dead, right? So why is that relevant to our bhakti practice? Before that, there's a motivational speaker called Zig Ziglar. He said, people say motivation is hard. So is bathing, which is why we recommend it daily. Does this sound familiar? We connect each and every day to Krishna. It's our daily charge. We don't wait till Sunday. I saw a sign outside a church once. I took a photograph, but I couldn't find it to put it up on this presentation. And the sign said, if you only exercise your spiritual muscles once a week, you will not have any strength. Isn't that wonderful? So it's a daily charge. We connect each and every day to Krishna through chanting Hare Krishna. We chant a certain number of rounds every day. Reading Hari Katha. So, you know, we frequently hear that this process is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Mahaprabhu came to give Sankirtana. But Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, said that Hari Katha, or topics by Krishna and about Krishna, are the energy, the Swarup Shakti of the chanting of the holy name. You cannot do, just like you don't worship Krishna without Radharani, you cannot worship the holy name without constantly, regularly reading Hari Katha. Yeah? Then we honor Prasad, only Krishna Prasad. And we worship the deity. These 4 things are mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in his purport to Bhagavad Gita 13.8 to 12 as the secrets of happiness in family life. In our regulated state of sadhana bhakti, we are not doing this 24 hours a day, but we're doing it daily, so that our cell phone batteries, our spiritual batteries are charged all the time. right? And they don't get dead. And then we share about Krishna, because Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada wanted us to share about Krishna. Now you might think, look, I'm a Pujari, Shanti Pran Prabhu is such a wonderful devotee. He said, I live in Tobacco, I don't actually go and preach maybe because I have so many duties to do. No, but he's preaching because he's keeping this beautiful temple, the deities dressed, the temple clean. Why? So that people who come in, immediately their mind is attached and attracted to Krishna. That's sharing about Krishna. Or we have someone who comes to our home, or we are at work and we find an opportunity to share about Krishna. We may not be able to give a book at work, but we can certainly talk about Krishna, right? And there are appropriate ways to do it. One of my teachers, His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, he's expert at introducing Krishna into every situation. So if you hear Vaisheshika Prabhu's lectures, you will see how you can do it in every aspect of your life. But there are many other teachers, not just Vaisheshika Prabhu, but he's one of my personal favorites. And lastly, see the spread of books that Srila Prabhupada wrote. When you see it all together, it's staggering how many books he wrote. And the principal ones, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which we should read a little of every single day. Jai Shri Subordinate, Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman, Shri Gita and Sundari Bhagwan Ki. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this coincidentally was my last slide. So I'm going to actually stop and see if there are any reflections, comments, corrections, questions.
I think to add to your point on that daily practice, which is a very powerful point that everybody should be practicing daily.
Mm-hmm.
And then you quoted the Marathi verse, proverb, which goes like each drop daily
Mm-hmm.
fills the container. Same thing, it's the same saying in Gujarati as well, Tipe Tipe Sarovar Bharai.
Mm.
And I really appreciate the fact that you said, quote the example of the church, where it said that once a week,
Mm.
if you just practice spirituality, it will not make you strong.
Yeah, your spiritual muscles won't get
Yeah.
strong. Mm-hmm.
So thank you for emphasizing daily sadhana, and that really keeps us going.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good. People at the back here, she was appreciating the points about the daily sadhana and how a little every day adds up to a lot over time. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I have a question. In your slides, you highlighted a couple of times, a couple of points. One was very soon, immediately, right? So how, can you please elaborate for everyone, how a devotee's endeavor can reflect into very soon versus very long?
Mm-hmm.
If you can tell us.
Yeah, thank you. I deliberately didn't say anything about it because I was hoping someone would ask a question. So I remember someone asked Mike Guru Maharaj.
Balaji, Tirupati, their channel, TV channel, they are coming daily, Bhagavad Gita. They are chanting in Telugu.
Oh.
So anybody knows Telugu can hear daily 1 hour.
Wonderful.
It will come.
Yeah, and there is Hare Krishna TV also. In many languages they have
Tirupati, Balaji.
24 hours a day. Thank you.
Nicely they are elaborating Bhagavad Gita.
Wonderful.
1 hour daily, 1 hour is there.
Yeah.
You can see from here, YouTube.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can
So very, someone asked my spiritual master, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, the same question once. That, sometimes if you read Chaitanya Bhagavat, for example, literally at every, every chapter, but certainly sometimes 5 times in a chapter, Vrindavan Das Thakur will say, anyone who hears this pastime of Mahaprabhu honoring Prasad with Advaita Acharya Prabhu will get pure love of Godhead. Or another point Vrindavan Das Thakur might say, anyone who just hears this pastime will very soon develop pure love for Krishna. So someone said, well, I'm hearing this Harikatha for 25 years. I don't feel I have pure love for Krishna, right? So how to understand that, or how to understand very soon? So, if you think of the amount of time, like cosmic time, right? One lifetime, if we have a long lifetime, maybe 80 years, 85 years, it's nothing. It's not even the speck of a grain, right? So for us, just like if you put your child through kindergarten, and then immediately the child says, well, I've spent 2 years in kindergarten and first grade or whatever, now I'm bored with this 2 plus 2 equal to 4, and 2 times 4 equal to 8. Like, what is this stupid mathematics you're teaching me? Can you not teach me calculus? Right? Do you think the child will understand? No. So the child has to go through some amount of knowledge and maturation before they can be introduced to complex concepts. Similarly, what is emphasized in Bhakti Yoga is not so much the rituals. The rituals and the programs are given so that we have like guardrails, so we don't go off the road down into the valley, right? We stay on the road. But these guardrails are meant for us to develop one thing and one thing only, which is love for Krishna. So it's not like, okay, if I chant, Radhika and I were discussing this earlier today. This Bhakti Yoga is not a formulaic process, that if I chant Hare Krishna 10 million times in this lifetime, I'm guaranteed to go back to Godhead, right? And then those of us who are, spreadsheet people will log it on a spreadsheet and will say, okay, we are at 5.7 million today, and I need another 23 years, but what if I'm dead after 5 years, So that kind of gets complicated. That's not how Bhakti Yoga works, right? So Bhakti Yoga works by, it's a matter of the heart. Krishna cannot be bound or purchased by formulas or put into a box, right? So it's all about developing our love. And Krishna tells us very clearly in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam, and above all in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that it is by serving those who love me, which is serving the devotees, right? And hearing Hari Katha and chanting Hare Krishna in their association, that you will become dear to me. Actually, later in the chapter 12, from verse 13 to 20, Krishna gives many qualities which make a devotee dear to him, right? And so when we practice all this and we realize that Krishna, my aim is not, I don't want to have this cheating mentality that if I do so much, then you'll give me so much, because then that's business, right? The moment we get over that, Burijan Prabhu says, all we have to do is develop a desire to attain Krishna and do something to achieve that desire, right? Concretely. And then the length of time it takes will be up to Krishna. But Krishna takes personal charge of the devotee. And then events happen in our life. And sometimes things get broken because we are stuck in old paradigms. We are stuck in old ways that are harmful to our spiritual growth. And Krishna takes that away. And then we are saying, Krishna, I turned to you 20 years ago. Why am I suffering now? I thought this process is meant to take me out of suffering, right? What Krishna is doing is, he's preparing a beautiful new spiritual life for us. We don't know the end plan. He knows the end plan. And all we have to do is, Krishna, I'm yours. I'm going to follow this process. And then the time factor becomes irrelevant in one sense, because we get increasingly absorbed. And even in this material body, we experience spiritual happiness. So there is no set time. There is no formula. That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
I just wanted to pointing out, since
You can be as loud as possible.
since the topic of the lecture was hope giving, and you narrated that Krishna, if you cannot do this, you can do this. If you cannot do this, so he giving us hope after hope after hope. So, and he loved everyone, even like new person who come to the temple, just step into the temple once. He very much care and try to protect this soul and the path come back to him. So how we should be very gentle and careful with each other and hope giving to each other and not discourage each other when we face some challenges in spiritual life or devotional service, when we serve together, how we should be careful in our words and our behavior and our intention, that we don't spoil each other bhakti, that we are careful with each other. We should choose our words, what we say, how we say, we give each other inspiration. So I think it's important, and take example from Krishna. We can sin so much, and Krishna can overlook those sins and give us opportunity to serve. So when it comes to association, we should be unlimited in our love and forgiveness to each other.
That's a great point. And for people in the back, if you didn't hear it, what Sri Radhika was saying is that Krishna gives us In fact, Krishna is so kind, he just looks for excuses to give us his blessings. Yeah, he's just looking, because it's a process of love, so it has to originate from us. The desire to connect with Krishna has to originate from us. But the moment we do that, that connection, Krishna gives us excuses and makes all kinds of facilities for us to get connected with him. But Radhika, the point she was making was that if Krishna is so merciful and so hope-giving, when we deal with each other, if we act in the opposite way, we will not only kill someone else's bhakti, we'll kill our own bhakti. Because if one of my Shiksha gurus, Rukmini Devi, very dear personal friend of mine, Prabhupada disciple, one of his earliest disciples actually, Rukmini said in one class, it really stuck with me, that devotees have to always be givers of hope. If we cannot inspire or give hope to someone or encourage someone, at least we should shut up. We should not actively smash someone's bhakti. So say for example, Nandan Acharya, he's such a wonderful devotee, but say something in a festival he does, I don't like it. So maybe I should just keep my mouth shut and not go to Nandan. I can give him feedback in a nice way. If, build a relationship with him and say, hey Prabhu, this didn't work, maybe next time we can do it that way. But if I come to him in public and start yelling at him like, hey, you Nandan Acharya, what the hell are you doing? And what are you, don't you know how to organize this? How do you think it makes him feel? Do you think it inspires him to do bhakti the next time? To do that service? He'll feel miserable, or he'll look at me and he'll cringe. He'll be like, oh my God, that Yasoda-dulal is here again. Like, I better duck, right? We don't ever want to have relationships like that. So if we don't like something, Krishna says, better to do your own duty imperfectly than someone else's duty perfectly. So if my job is to do this, let me concentrate on doing that nicely, and let me encourage. And there's a difference. It's a whole seminar. You can give a whole week seminar on this, on how we can give feedback as devotees to each other. But the underlying principle is, we should not smash, we should encourage.
Thank you, Srila Prabhupada.
Ki Jai.
Let's give a round of applause for her. Very wonderfully summarized the essence of what needs to be done, and the yoga of hope, that there's always hope no matter what level of the ladder we're on. As long as we get on the ladder, unlimited amount of hope, and we can find our place on the ladder where we're comfortable. But don't just leave this Krishna conscious practice till weekends, like that quote, right? If you only do it on the weekend,